Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Let me
Great
do this.
to see you. We're excited to be here. It's
Absolutely.
wonderful
Such a delight.
hearing Sharonda's presentation. Healthcare is a huge area, and we're excited to be the final keynote for today. Um, and so this is building an equitable and inclusive future with Web3.
Mhm.
I'm Jordan Woods,
And
and
I'm Radhika Iyengar.
we're founding partners at StarChain Ventures. Um, we'll just do a quick overview of our backgrounds. So Radhika, do you want to get us started?
Sure. Just want to say that, first of all, I'm delighted to be here as a woman of the future from Volume 1 last year. Absolutely thrilled to be here with you all today. I'm a top 100 women of the future. I'm a Silicon Valley woman of influence, a TEDx speaker, and have been working in technology pretty much most of my life. And that being said, the most exciting phase of my life right now is being involved with everything that has to do with Web3, particularly around decentralization, disintermediation, tokenization, all of the things that we hold so valuable around Web3, and have spoken at prominent venues around the world. Continue to do so, advocating and passionately, endorsing this particular technology. As Sharonda concluded her presentation, this is about the technology itself and the real value that can be derived from this technology, and really see a very exciting future going forward. Um, and I'll just say that, I've been around the world. I mean, I'm originally from India and grew up in North Africa and have lived here in the United States longer than anyone else, but my heart is truly global. So everything that I look at around technology is from the global lens and how we can solve significant challenges around the world, which is what we're trying to do with StarChain Ventures and everything that we're involved with, for that purpose, which is to create more global impact. And now we're creating this impact with Web3. Jordan.
Yeah, so I'm pretty technical. My background is an astrophysicist, and I've been involved with tech here in Silicon Valley for the last 25 years. Radhika and I started StarChain Ventures. We went all in on blockchain and Web3 and have seen it pretty much as the future of all tech because it really provides trust and a trust layer for all transactions. It's also much more secure, as you know, we'll be talking about. I've also been an invited guest speaker and an expert on Web3, blockchain, all kinds of different technologies. We're really at the convergence, not just of blockchain, but blockchain, AI, IoT, AR, VR. Very big proponent of the metaverse, have been in that space for decades, actually. Have been very active in the startup ecosystem, having raised nearly 50 million for my own companies, and overall, Radhika and I have helped companies raise, close to 200 million, actually more than 200 million over the years. We're always at the forefront of the latest in technology. So, without further ado, let's get really into it. We've built a community, and we've been very much focused for the last 5 years on how do we increase equity and inclusion in the tech ecosystem. And so we'd like to share with you some of our ideas. Um, do you want to speak a little bit about our book, Radhika?
Sure. That we published our book, Enterprise Blockchain Has Arrived, in 2019, and it really is about Web3 more than just blockchain. I think if we'd called it Web3, less people would have bought the book. But I think it was early in the day, but it was really line one of our preface, which called out the rise of Web3 from the business opportunity perspective. Trillions of dollars of business opportunity, as we forecasted back in 2019, that are playing out just as we kind of predicted it in our book. It is both technical as well as business friendly. We talk about so many different use cases, about 27 of those, and have interviews with thought leaders. So it's not just our own thought leadership, but we've got a front row seat with thought leaders and practitioners of the time, talking about what this technology is about and how we utilize this technology to greatest benefit. So a large source of this presentation is from our book, but it really is our life's work. So we wanted to share more of that with you in this presentation.
Yeah, and so it really serves as the foundational layer, and we see that decentralization is really a foundation for fairness, and and blockchain technology is really a foundation for building the sustainable, equitable, and inclusive ecosystem. So we'd like to take you through the framework that we've come up with. Um, the I see the formatting is a little bit off on this, but no matter. The idea here is there's a process to move from the existing systems that we are familiar with today, which are not equitable for the large part and are not inclusive. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And getting to these equitable and inclusive ecosystems and empowered communities that can actually build sustainably. So this, we're going to go through these building blocks.
Mhm.
What we see is that you really need diverse teams as a starting point, but diverse teams are not enough. They're a starting point, but the diverse teams without the additional factors, which we're going to talk about here, can just keep things the same as that they've always been. So that's really a foundation point, because they do provide different life experiences, different points of view, but you need more. And so Radhika, can you tell us a little bit more about the additional things that we need to add?
Sure. So, diverse teams are a great foundation, a great place to start. It's actually a must in our view, but it has to be intentional. There has to be intentional diversity, equity, and inclusion. This has to be that reverberating heartbeat of all teams, is to be really hyper focused, and it has to be intentional. This can't be some add on at the very end saying, oh, well, we forgot about that, and we're going to throw some resources at it and hope that things change. It really has to be at the very fabric of what you're building, is this intentionality around DEI. Jorden.
Yeah, so diverse teams with this intentional approach to DEI, gives you organizations, communities that are going to be promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. That needs to come from, all of the founding members, but then it has to be something that is spread throughout the entire community, that you have an equity and inclusion mindset. So all the different activities, all the different types of initiatives that the organization is focused on, it's not like a side thing. It's really seeing equity and inclusion and diversity as strengths. And so asking the teams, asking for the different points of view, valuing those different points of view. So that is really another building block, that is necessary. Um, and it doesn't come right away, so you need more things. And so, Radhika?
So, great. What we do have this foundation, we have this mindset, we have this intentionality. At the core of everything, we begin with education and understanding. Because if we have to understand people that are diverse, people that are different from ourselves, we can't look at that and saying, I don't understand. We have to educate ourselves. We have to instill this culture of education and understanding. And that's really at the cornerstone of achieving everything else that comes afterwards. So, Jorden, adding to that education and understanding we need.
Yeah, so, with equity and inclusion and diversity being seen as strengths, and then, education and understanding being there as an ongoing kind of journey for everyone. Um, what we've seen is, if you really understand other people's situations, their life's experience, that often builds bonds that can lead to empathy and compassion. And so empathy and compassion are critically important to then saying, okay, well, this types of situation that you have, it should be improved, right? It's something that we should work together in order to make things better. And it can be something that's for a particular group, but it could be for everyone, right? We're all facing major crises in this world that impacts everyone, potentially at different levels, but we're all being impacted. So the idea is, with the understanding, you then have empathy and compassion, and then that can lead to action and shared goals.
And so, to that action is respect and tolerance. So, once you establish and foster this education and understanding and leading to empathy and compassion, we then can really look at a culture that can be fostered of respect and tolerance. As we know globally, all of the major challenges that we are seeing from a human perspective is the lack of respect and tolerance, the lack of empathy and compassion, the lack of understanding and proper education. Sometimes it's just inaccessible. So I think this intentionality of creating this culture has to be from ground up, it has to be foundational, and to foster this culture in every organization, in every community of respect and tolerance will hopefully get us to a better place where we can actually achieve collaboration. So, to that collaboration, Jorden, would you like to talk about the approach in collaboration?
Yeah, sure. So, with respect for, truth and for, um, people's lived experiences, respect for others, the tolerance that there will be different points of view, it's then, you can build on that through a balanced approach where you don't have just one, path, one group of people, one way of thinking that dominates, but it's actually a shared approach where people, take into account everybody's different points of view, but it's still based on facts and truth. And so moving forward, there is respect for these kind of bedrock foundational pieces, but then also taking account of the different points of view that exist in terms of decision making and in terms of the whole process of deciding what is going to be prioritized and how the community is going to move forward. So this leads to a very important concept that Radhika speaks about in our community all the time,
Oh,
and not just in the community, but just in general. So Radhika, can you tell us
yeah,
about?
I often do talk about we culture. I think so often we are surrounded in everything that we do about individual achievements, individual goals, individual success, that we lose sight of the collective consciousness and the we culture that needs to permeate globally. So that, anything that we do in our little backyard impacts a much broader set of people. So, with that intentionality, it's also connecting the dots and understanding that our actions are not isolated, our actions are not insular. We don't live in a vacuum. So, everything that we do has an effect, has that ripple effect. And what we need to strive to do is increase the positive ripple effect, not the negative ripple effect of every action that we take. So it has to be about waking up in the morning and saying, this is about we culture. This is about embracing the collective power and the collective consciousness, as we said. So we culture really has to be at the core and at the heart of what we're doing. And it's as much as important in that aspect of leadership. Leadership is not just about one person sitting at the top of the pyramid and saying, I'm the leader, I'm going to take action. It's about being inclusive and collaborating and inviting that. And that we culture mindset is really critical to achieving a flatter sense of leadership. It's a side by side collaborative type of leadership, which is a new bold leadership, which is absolutely going to be required to build that equitable and inclusive future that we know is possible.
Yeah, and that's really critical. This idea that we shift from, like Radhika said, an I, that I'm actualizing my goals, to the community is actualizing community goals, right? So we have community goals, we have goals that, will provide benefit to everyone. Some people, may have different kinds of benefits that they gain, but everybody is providing, their actions and their resources, etc., to the community, and then the community is able to actualize these goals that benefit everyone, right? And so that's a very different mindset. This is a shift. It's a system change, right? Where it's the group that is benefiting, and then those benefits come down to the individuals rather than the individuals benefit, and it's more of a zero sum, right? And we'll talk more about that. But if people feel like they're being heard, like, their actions are, recognized, they have respect from other people in the community, that what they have experienced is valuable, and that their thoughts are important and they're cherished as people, then you can get an empowered community. And that empowered community can then go on in order to actualize these community goals in ways that benefit everyone, not just the few, but the many. So that's really the idea of how equity inclusion, building systems that prioritize equity and inclusion, can lead to empowered communities and then the actualization of these community goals. Now, in order to do that, you need to have an underpinning. And so we wanted to talk a bit about why we see Web3 as the right underpinning for that. So Radhika, if you can tell us a little bit about the ethos.
Sure. Well, we've been discussing this for many years now, and it really is an ethos. Web3 is not just about the technology. Obviously, it is about the technology, but behind this technology is this mindset that we've been talking about. There's a super physical layer, if you will, and that's the ethos that surrounds all of this technology. And what we find is that organizations, companies, individuals, communities that embrace the ethos are more likely to succeed in their efforts at implementing new frameworks, new systems that are based on Web3 principles, rather than those who are trying to sort of fit that square peg in the round hole and really losing sight of the most important elements of this ethos. And if we go through very quickly on the main points of the ethos, we're talking about decentralized, fair and equitable, community-driven, self-governing, power symmetry, shared data, and it's peer-to-peer. Now, these may seem like a lot of just bullet points up there. They really do represent everything that permeates what Web3 really is all about. And that the tenets of Web3 stem from this fair and equitable, decentralized, dare I say, democratic way of thinking that permeates the consciousness of what we build in Web3, and that the technology is going to be mirroring what this ethos is all about.
Yeah, so it's much more a concept of grassroots. So rather than a central authority which just controls everything and has access to all the information and is, getting everything, to itself, which is really, the centralized kinds of systems that we're used to today, with a single owner that takes all in the platform, kind of generates all of the value within the ecosystem, and everybody is just kind of a product within that ecosystem and isn't really getting a very large return. The idea with decentralized infrastructure is that rather than one taking all, it's that everyone shares in the gains, right? So it's everyone's voice is heard, everybody can be valued, everybody is working together, and the benefits accrue to everyone. Everybody puts in, and the more everybody puts in, the more everyone can get out. Whereas, the more you put into a centralized system, the more the owner benefits, but you may not benefit at all. Actually, it's zero sum, so you shouldn't benefit. There's actually a lot that's put in place to make sure you don't benefit. Whereas with decentralized systems, the idea is the more you put in, the more you're incentivized and the more you get out, right? So there's this whole token economy, or there are benefits that are recorded. And so everybody is aware of, what you have done. And, as a result, you gain, more benefit. So everybody then is incentivized to do the same and get equal benefit and move the entire organization and community to the highest level possible.
And indeed, what we're seeing with these Web3 systems is that they have actual mechanisms to arrive at a single secure source of truth, which is transparent and visible to all, there's a shared ledger across untrusting parties, maybe not distrusting parties, because that has an element of I distrust you. That's not what we're trying to communicate. We're saying untrusting parties, so they could be competitors that usually don't have that level of direct trust with one another because they're in competition with one another, but they're able to participate in a shared ledger that allows them to share critical information that is benefiting both. It's the automation of decentralized transactions that's usually accomplished through smart contracts, for example. And it's the tokenization of everything, because these digital assets that we are transacting with really are tokens, right? And so the tokenization of everything, there's another side benefit to that tokenization, which is incentivization. That's the other half of that coin, if you will. And that half of incentivization, as we start building systems that have positive incentives for positive behaviors and repercussions for negative behaviors, these are the types of systems that then foster the type of collective consciousness that we're talking about, the type of we culture that we've been talking about. And that all of this really comes from open source, because the idea is that somebody has access to something that is out there and can build upon it. So the whole idea is to build upon past successes, past efforts, rather than developing things in silo and fostering greater and greater and greater fragmentation and disparity across the systems that we're hoping to achieve.
Yeah, so what you can see with this is that truth and honesty are incentivized, right, in these systems, so that you're starting with that as a foundation, that, those that are telling the truth, those that are working towards the truth are held up to the highest standard, and anybody that is not doing that is actually, pushed out of the community or is penalized, for the poor behavior. And then there's extreme transparency, as Radhika has mentioned, in terms of the open source. And then it's scalable, right? And it's sustainable, because, you can automate these transactions, and everyone, has this shared information. So again, this is the extreme transparency. And then you have this incentivization layer as well. So these are all the things that we've been talking about, which are the critical components for building the kind of digital communities that we have now been talking about, right? Now, centralized systems cannot do this. It's impossible, because they don't have these tenets. They actually are just the reverse, and we can see that in the world today. So we have...
Yeah, before I talk about the community here, Jorden,
Mm.
I just wanted to touch upon the fact that both Jorden and I participated at the invitation to participate in a digital consultation with the UN Secretary General and his team back in 2021 to put together proposals on various fronts. And so we each put together 3 proposals, but one of Jordan's proposals, for example, was on decision-making powered by triple bottom line frameworks. That is triple bottom line, that's people, planet, and profits. And that each of those ambitions or goals are achievable, not one at the expense of the other. All 3 are upheld. So that's the triple bottom line. And I also put together 3 proposals, and one of my proposals was to creating a equitable and fairer society through decentralized frameworks and networks. So again, this whole presentation is about stemming from that idea that we can leverage the best of technology and systems that are available to us to create the kinds of systems that will foster greater equitability and inclusion throughout the world. So with this mindset and this ambition and goal, Jorden and I came up with the AstroSapiens project last year. The AstroSapiens project, if you want to know more, you can go to astrosapiensnft.com. But it really is a 4-pronged project that has a NFT collection, which is diverse and inclusive, that has a DAO that stems from that. And the DAO steers the foundation, the AstroSapiens Foundation, which awards grants to key projects and institutions and organizations and communities that are doing impactful work. And then that we have this really beautiful, mission-driven, diverse and inclusive Web3 focused community, the AstroSapiens community, which is right now growing as we speak. And it really is about creating a fairer and more equitable society, that everyone has equal access to achieve their goals, to have better access points, and to really create more wealth generation possibilities for all. Because as we know, multi-generational wealth is really something that has been almost impossible for many populations across the globe. As we know, multi-generational wealth creates even more wealth across from generation to generation. So does poverty. In fact, in the US alone, there was a recent article that talked about poverty being the fourth largest problem or challenge within the United States. And you wouldn't often think about a first world country like United States having poverty as the fourth major contributor to mortality. So I think it is something that is upon us, and we have to look at these value creation opportunities, not from an individual perspective, but from a collective community perspective. And with all of us being a part of the solution, we can absolutely strive to achieve an equitable and fair society and a world that we can all be proud to live in.
Yeah, and all these approaches need to be sustainable. What we're trying to work towards is not a one-off kind of a solution, or not a solution that is dependent on the wealthy, you know, providing to those that are not, right? It has to be something that all can contribute to, and all actually pull the entire society up by its bootstraps. And so that's what a lot of the different approaches are that we're taking within the community. Now, within this is two last topics that we would like to discuss. One is the open metaverse, and the second is decentralized AI. But the reason for an open metaverse is because things like creator rights, ownership of assets, interoperability, and open information. These are the different types of things that we've been talking about that are important. Like, for example, with the Web3 Foundation, but also just how do you build a more equitable and inclusive, kind of community and society. If creators' rights are trampled on, and they're not, given the ability to monetize, then this innovation and those that are actually creating the engines of the society are not being promoted, right? And so this is a huge area of inequity, and you see this throughout the world and throughout our society. We also need to be able to own our assets. This is not something that we can currently do online, but the goal is really to get to a safe, ethical, accessible, and empowered metaverse. Not something that looks like social media, which is the opposite of this. It's not safe, tends not to be ethical. It's really not that accessible because people get bullied, they get shut out, and people don't feel empowered. Only those that have the loudest voices, whatever they might be, are heard. So the idea is to create the exact opposite of what we have by providing the right foundation points. Again, the foundation points have to be along the lines of equity, inclusion, diversity, and then these types of things. The other particular area which suffers from many of these same problems, right? Trampling on creator rights, people not owning assets, lack of interoperability, information being proprietary, is the whole area of AI, which is very big right now. We see as a solution decentralized AI.
Absolutely. I think, for all that there is a lot of attention given to AI in general, and generative AI has become a household discussion point, I think, in many circles. What we lose sight of the fact is that centralized AI has the same kinds of failings that we're seeing across most of the centralized systems, which is that things are not constructed in a way that is inclusive, that is equitable. What we need is an explainable, blockchain-based, personalized, and private AI that comes from decentralized architectures, and that the result of that is, again, like you might expect, a safe and ethical AI that is also benevolent and beneficial. And this is not something that is far off in the distant future. In fact, we're proud to be associated with Singularity Net, which is run by Dr. Ben Goertzel and Janet Adams. And this organization is entirely focused on decentralized AI. They just released their new decentralized LLM, or large language model, called Zarka. And I recommend, I encourage all of you to check it out, because these new decentralized AI architectures, again, are going to spur the rise of benevolent and beneficial AI, not the opposite, which is kind of what we see is potentially the caveat. So many of the warning bells that are being sounded within the tech communities and within mainstream communities are about the caveats. And so the other aspect that we wanted to bring out is that Singularity Net is also the creator or co-creator of the robots, commonly known as Sophia Robot. Everybody has, I think, heard of Sophia Robot. And now there is Grace Robot, who was released just recently. And I recently participated on a panel with her just for Women's Month this year. And she is entirely focused on elder care. So, with Sharona talking about the nursing aspect, absolutely, we need benevolent AI, artificial general intelligence that is going to be beneficial to humanity for everything that we hold sacred and dear to us on Earth, and that this is not something, again, in the far off future. The last thing that I will mention is that the whole decentralized AI movement is also being supported by the Decentralized AI Alliance, DAIA. Jorden and I happen to be founding members of that organization. And again, the whole movement of AI has to be intentionally focused on building this equitable, fairer, more beneficial and benevolent future.
Thank you, Radhika, and thank you all for your time. And thank you to Anne-Marie and Sue and the whole Women of the Future initiative. We're great supporters, and we really appreciate the opportunity to share the work that we're doing.
And appreciate the incredible initiatives for Women of the Future.